Okay, welcome back, everybody. Say hi, Elvis. Say hi, Bob. Okay, goodbye. Okay, so today, or this video, we're going to talk really about how to move from your values or your categories to really getting to what story you're going to write in terms of your essay. And this is my favorite part. So I didn't make any fancy PowerPoints. I just wrote down some things, and then I think if you follow along, actually you might want to get just a piece of paper right now, and you're going to follow along. So let's see. I wrote down some sample values. Okay, so I call these values, and I also refer to them as your whats. So remember we talked about the categories: leadership, places, people, objects, hobbies, work, and experiences. So hopefully you have down, before you started this video, hopefully you have down some of your values, or what I call your whats. Okay, so if you have those written down, you can make like 3 little columns, if you will. And so what's really important that you understand is that this essay is not going to be about your what. Okay, let me say that again. This essay is not going to be about your what or your value. Your essay, your college essay, is going to be about your why. So let me explain. It's important that you follow this and watch it over and over again if you have to. So when you say that student council is important to you or is a value, you want to think about why does Susie, does Victor, does Marlo, does whoever you are out there, why do you value student council? And so I have some samples of why different people. Some people, for me, when I was in student council, it made me feel tall. It made me feel proud, and I'm not that tall to begin with. For some, it makes you feel like you can make a difference, or you build friendships with the people you work with, or you learn how to budget. Okay? A place. Maybe you're a pitcher. For example, Victor was on the baseball team. Maybe he's the pitcher. Maybe the pitching mound is your place, your sanctuary. Why? It's going to be different for everybody. Maybe because it gives you confidence, or because you remember that you're reminded that you have to work as a team. Maybe it's good exercise. Maybe you have friends for life. Let's jump down here. We noticed that Erica loved dogs. Maybe she loves it because it makes her feel responsible, or she likes to take in the strays and give them a home, or she loves that she has to walk them and give them love. Divorced parents. This is an experience that some of you, unfortunately, have in your life to write about if you want to. Maybe you value that, or I don't want to say you value it, but maybe it's one of your whats because it's affected your life. Maybe you now live in a smaller home or apartment. Maybe, on the other hand, you get to spend individual time with mom and dad. Maybe if you're a young man, maybe you've had to learn how to be the man of the house. So what I want you to understand more than anything is that if you can figure out your why, then you're going to be halfway there, because your why is what's going to make your story unique. Okay, so let me just say that again. Okay. Your what, or your value, is the generic topic. So many students make the mistake of writing about their what and don't give first time to reflect on why it's important to them. So if you can figure out your why, that's what makes your essay unique to you. And if you can figure that out, you're halfway there. So I just want to call attention to the fact that each one of these essays is going to be different. Okay? Depending on which why I choose, it's going to make for a very different essay. Okay? So let's take a look. So I've chosen some whys, and I have some sample stories that would result in my essay. Okay? So again, taking leadership as an example and student council as the what, or your value. For me, it made me feel tall. So what does that mean? I put together an assembly for a retirement assembly that 6 teachers were retiring at once. So the story was, story I would write about is that each teacher was escorted down a flank of drill team salutes while being serenaded to The Wind Beneath My Wings, and sort of standing at the podium announcing each teacher. That made me feel tall, it made me feel proud, it made me feel like a leader. Okay, so that one story, that one window in my life shows my why, not my what. Let's go to the next one. A place, the pitching mound. For Victor, maybe it gives him confidence. And the story he would focus on, or could focus on, I'm sure there are many, would be the time, it was probably a very small window of his life, that, and I remember in a sample of this, there were no outs, bases were loaded, and Victor had to strike out these next three batters in order for them not to score. And Victor throws 9 strikes in a row and gets everyone out, and they win the game. Okay? That is probably, I don't know, 10 minutes of his world, but it's a small window to show the why. He had the confidence and the wherewithal and the determination to make that happen. So the pitching mound is where it took place, but the confidence is what the story is really about. Grandma. Maybe grandma makes you feel loved. Maybe going to grandma's house is where you feel the safest or where you feel the most love. In a story, this is an example. I've made most of these up. Learning, maybe grandma teaches you how to play the piano. And so having my hands or your hands on top of her hands and sitting together on the piano bench for your standing Saturday lesson, maybe that's just love, just pure love, unconditional love, sitting there with grandma. Comic books. We learned that Jack likes comic books. Maybe it's his connection to Dad. It could be anything. Maybe it was something else, but in the frame before, there were lots of reasons to like comic books, but we're going to focus on this one. So if you want to focus on having that connection with Dad, the story might be something about Dad passing on his collection of comic books, and or researching superheroes online together looking for new comic books. So maybe that's a precious sort of story, one day, one evening, one afternoon that happened with you and your father. The love of dogs. Feeling responsible is the why that we went with here. And so I want to show you that why determines what story you choose. So maybe Erica started a mini business and walks 6 dogs in the neighborhood. And her story would be sort of a typical day, coming home after school and going to pick up all 6 dogs and taking them for a 2-mile walk. Now, that doesn't sound like a whole lot of essay, but there's a lot that the college admission officer is going to learn. It's going to learn that she took initiative. She started this little business. She has responsibility. She goes from each house to each house, knows what each dog needs. So there's a lot that's going to happen in that one afternoon, 1-hour walk. But we're going to learn a lot about Erica. Divorced parents, lots of reasons to have this as your what, but maybe focusing on having a smaller home, and the story being that you now have to share a bedroom with your younger brother who's younger than you by 8 years, and that brings a lot of difficulty, a lot of challenges, a lot of courage, and so that can be a story. Again, it doesn't sound like much, but we're going to learn a lot about you. It's a very rich story when you focus on the why and not on the what. The last example I have is work experience. This apron, my sister, I think, wrote a similar essay. There's this apron that she used to wear that had like the little pockets for your cash and your money as a waitress. And maybe she values that object because it shows how independent she is. And she doesn't have to ask for mom or dad for a ride anymore. She's earned enough money to buy a car, and maybe the story is that she's getting dressed, putting on the apron and driving herself to work. Again, going off in a car that you've bought on your own. It's a used car that you go off to make your own money and really sort of learn what it's like to be independent. here are some more examples, and I won't go over each one, but these are just some examples. And one of my favorite ones, one of my favorite essays I have in my sample essays is this one, Places. And this person wrote really about sort of traveling around to the 47 states. They had at this point hit 47 states, her and her family, and they did this every summer. They would sort of get in the car and drive off to another location. And so the story was sort of in this boat on Okefenokee, I think is how you say it, swamp. And the last two sentences are my favorite. She ends with, Okefenokee comes from the Native American for land of the trembling earth. Looking around the boat at the faces of my family, the world feels surprisingly stable to me. So I just love that. Forgot the L line here. I just love that, how it captures everything. And again, this story focuses not on the traveling of the 47 states. It focuses on the why she values that. And she values that travel because she gets to share a moment in her life every summer with just her immediate family. And that's what the essay is ultimately about. I just want to make a comment about community service before we leave for this video. I don't particularly encourage students to write about community service experiences, not because I don't think they're valuable and that there's not a lot of richness there, but mostly because a lot of students use that sort of a community, that sort of cliche, if you will, to write about. And if you think about it, over nearly 60,000 students apply to UCLA, nearly 30,000 to some of these other, fantastic, highly competitive schools. So you're really looking to stand out. So these are two examples of how you could write a community service essay. You're not writing about the what, you're writing about the why. And if you do your community service with Relay for Life, for example, and maybe you lost your mother to breast cancer when you were 8 years old, your story wouldn't necessarily be about this community service or even about your mother's death. It would, if you could find something that was valuable and tangible that you could really look to, maybe inspiring 100 students at your own school to join in the Relay for Life and raising $2,000. That's something that you can say was really you. So at the end of an essay, do I read it and say, this helps me understand this Victor, this Marlo, this Erica, this Jack, or Susie, or Amanda, or whoever you are out there? Or is it generic and anyone could have written it? So you want to think about that. And then here's another one that I like as well. Maybe you enjoy community service because you believe in equal access for education, to education for all, access to education for all. And I have a student who wrote her story basically on doing a fundraiser. And it wasn't even about sort of the community service and her going and delivering these backpacks that she would raise money for, and this pencils and all of that, or even tutoring. It wasn't about tutoring these students at all either. But she decided to focus on the fundraiser part, and really like ringing the bell when the car pulled up for a car wash, and her yelling, "Thank you, you just bought 2 backpacks for kids in LA." And sort of that window of her life, a car wash, an hour of the car wash, really showing her passion, really showing her dedication in a unique way, not just her at the facility tutoring kids, but what she's doing about it. Okay, so again, just to reiterate, your what or your value is the generic topic. It is your why that is going to make your essay unique to you. So really think about your why, because your essay is not about your what. It is about your why. Okay? So come back, take some time, write down your whats, your whys, and your stories. See if you can come up with a story. And I'll be back to help you continue this journey. Bye-bye.